Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Conquer the Clutter for February 5th, 2025. I have had this week what I hope is a brainstorm idea rather than the alternative, based on the feedback that I got from a lot of people last week and that I have had a niggling desire for over quite a period of time. And that is this. I don't know if you know or not, but it cost me $791 a month to produce this podcast and have it posted, have it edited and posted. And this is not going to become a for charge thing, for fee thing rather. But I thought, what would it be like to kill, this is a bad expression, kill two birds with one stone, to accomplish two things at the same time? And that is, on alternate weeks, I do a presentation on a topic, okay? And on the off weeks, we don't record it, which will lower my costs. But what we do is a digestion of what the topic was, from how did people use the information to apply it, because I am not interested in giving up my Wednesday mornings just to blather on and have you hear the information. Hearing is only the first step. And even if people can only use small chunks of it, all right, and practice it, bringing that to the next week's podcast and sharing what little parts did work and what other parts they were still challenged by, and hear from the experience of their peers. We could have our own little clutter buddy thing happening. All right. Now, mind you, there would probably be up to 75 people clutter buddying, but just the same. How do people feel about that? Thumbs up, thumbs down? I have universal thumbs up. Okay, so as of next week, we're going to do that. So take notes. All right. And I will talk to Braden, my audiovisual engineer, and I will ask him whether his schedule can incorporate getting the podcast up sooner. And maybe it will, because there will only be half the number of podcasts that have to be posted. That also will help keep costs down for me, because I won't have to be paying vast amounts of money to have them edited and then housed. All of those podcasts that are housed, all right, it's like my own little very expensive storage unit, right? You have to pay for a site where they're homed, all right? And nobody does that these days for a little bit. So let's get started. So today, just hold on a minute. I need to move my little thing here so that I can do this better. All right, good. All right, so where are we now? There we are. Okay. So today we're going to look at the other end of the spectrum. We talked about, where are we? We talked about short-term goals. All right, last week, right? But you not only need short-term goals, you also need long-term goals. So today we're going to look at how to develop long-term goals. First and foremost, okay, we have to recognize that this is going to require what I talked about just a second ago. So it all feeds in together. It's going to require behavioral changes. What does that really mean, though? That means that in addition to thinking differently, we need to make an adjustment and be able to get into action, right? We also need to establish a plan or gradually replacing the dormant or possibly self-sabotaging behaviors. Go back to previous podcast for that. And we've discussed previously in the past in podcasts, and that you I know recorded on your handy dandy, always at hand paper and pen notes. So go back to the entries you made then, and let's begin from there. We need to gradually, and I stress the word gradually, start to replace the unproductive behaviors with healthier, sounder, more productive options, and they are doable. Because those very same options, other options that are productive, they were always available to you, but only if you allowed yourself to think differently. It starts here, but don't let it get stuck here. It's got to get to here, okay? All right. And that is, in thinking differently, you can possibly conceive of different ways about going about things in different ways. And those ways will be to overcome the barriers that you felt that interfered with you reaching your goals. The best way to start is to work at being present. Now, the more popular common name these days is mindfulness. How do we add mindful into other areas of our life? Because it isn't just the clutter that will change. Being mindful will also influence the thoughts you have, the fears you have, the concerns, habits, and choices. It'll also affect the alternatives that are present that you aren't seeing or considering. We just couldn't see them, all right? If you haven't actioned them, we just couldn't see them through the lens. It's a lens thing that we were looking at things through. Building on past podcasts about core beliefs and problematic thinking styles, also called limiting beliefs, go back and find the podcast, all right? Now, we need to, and the technical word here is reframe those beliefs. Now, this is not a fantasy trip on pretending, all right, or manipulating. Reframing is just looking at other true present aspects of the very thing that often is confounding us. Okay? And we do this by asking ourselves, write this down. What are the core beliefs and values to who you are? And how can we operate in a systematic, not a random way, but a systematic way? And to do that, we need to identify, we need to prioritize those parts of who we also are. Because these other random parts, they get in the way and derail us. The very fact that we don't rely on them and pull them out and use them systematically, reliably, consistently means that we get derailed. We go off and then we have to catch up. And they do it silently, but powerfully. All right. And they become through, go back to a podcast on habituation, how our brain works. The power is that they become our most common go-tos. Is that what you really want? Is there anybody here who is really, it's part of your goal to revisit and replay things that didn't work? Anybody? All right. Seeing a lot of head shakes. Good. And you know what we do? We know the enemy. That is our mantra. Know the enemy. And the enemy is what gets in our way to live the life, set the goals, and achieve what we most want for ourselves in our life. Remember I told you to underline the word gradually? All right. We need to check in with ourselves frequently. In fact, as frequently as is necessary, and that can change depending on the type of day or week you're having. Given the challenges that you're facing, we need to be, here's a biggie, underline this in capital letters. We need to be accountable as well. And we do that by checking in periodically, but periodically is on a regular basis. Not just when we're in trouble. When we're in trouble, we're operating on a not healthy, not useful hormonal soup that we're swimming in that keeps us trying to recover rather than advance. And not just when we're in trouble, because with ourselves or with others, you can do it one way or the other. You can check in with yourself in a way. You can check in with others. Specifically, though, about the progress we are actually making. Otherwise, all we're engaged in is a thinking behavior, not a doing behavior. Is there anybody here who is satisfied, gives up every Wednesday morning just to think about it? Anybody? I'm not seeing any head nods, so that's a good thing. Okay. So, what part of the goal or goals you have that are most important to you, priorities, require change behavior? We're not talking remaking yourself, being anything other than who you already are. You're just going into a different drawer in the bureau. Imagine yourself as a bureau. You're just going into a different drawer. Do you go into the underwear drawer when you're looking for socks? No, you go into the sock drawer, right? All right. And have you continually or repeatedly become stuck in the thinking and planning stage? Anybody here who has experienced revisit, 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 revisit? All right. If you're stuck in the thinking and planning stage, ask yourself this question. I will speak slowly so you can write it down. What was your experience actually trying to implement that thinking and planning part of goal setting? What was your experience? What was it that you were aiming for? And as you look back on it now, how does it look and feel? What progress have you made? Have you started to transition to a behavioral stage? Okay. Did you remember repeatedly in that thinking and planning stage to acknowledge and validate yourself, to give yourself a boost of confidence and energy for whatever achievements at whatever level you actually accomplished in the past? When you're trying to transition, you need to draw on the energy of success, not failure, not derailment, not overwhelm, not prejudging. You need to go back to a time when you actually accomplished something behaviorally. And if you did, how did you solidify your commitment and your appreciation to what, even if it isn't today, what is and has been part of your true capability? If you did it, and I don't care whether it was just a matter of cleaning off the table when the rest of the house is in disarray, you go back to your moments of success. And how did you feel? What did you do differently? And what is different now? Right? No matter how small that progress was, it is progress. It remains progress. Even if the spot has been undone, you actually can claim that as progress. What worked for you that time or those times needs to be put back to back with what you're doing differently now. If you're stymied now, or you're not feeling that you're making progress, what are you doing differently now? That previous exercise of self-accomplishment, celebrating sounds so phony. It sounds so big and so grand. It can just be an attaboy. I did it. You know what? Whatever's getting in the way right now, I know I can do this. I'm not 100% sure how. Something's in the way, but now I need to find out what's in the way. Celebrate the progress, no matter how small, because it helps us to identify and validate the areas of actual behavioral improvement. What did you learn from the setbacks and the improvements? Both of those component parts are part of who you are and what you have to draw on or not draw on. And if you had it to do over again, this thing that maybe has you on the run, or you're a little bit stymied, a little bit on pause, delay, right? What would you do the same as what gave you progress then? And what would you do differently? Do you realize that what you need to incorporate into the next step moving forward is to learn from your own experience? Positive experience and negative experience. What do I not want to repeat? And if I don't know what to do and I'm tempted to repeat something that was not successful just to have something to do, to say I did something, pause. Pause and get it figured out here. All right. And then do anything other than what didn't work the last time. Repeat what worked and limit what didn't. All right. It's particularly helpful to have regular planned check-ins with yourself, or in this case, other members of maybe your Clutter Buddy system. Many people have joined a Clutter Buddy system. We are going to set up not to replace, all right, the alternate week. Nothing gets recorded, and we digest and we deconstruct how we use last week's material to actually make a behavioral change in what we're doing. How did we add that information by testing it out in the next week to our behavioral repertoire? Once it's been part of our behavioral repertoire, even once, we have a memory, we have a muscle memory part now to add to our skill set. And as you stand back and look at what you did right now, take a second right now and consider, what was the actual tangible progress in the last experience you had with making progress? And whatever it was, no matter how little or how much, give yourself acknowledgement right now. I don't care if you are sitting in clutter up to your hips. Well, I do actually, but that's not the point here. All right. We build success on success, not on failure, but we learn from failure. We learn from setbacks. And we do it simply for having done it. All right. Don't underestimate the value of muscle memory. The more we do something, yes, we habituate it here, but the more we also add muscle memory to it. And that is a powerful combination. It allows us to engage, and it is a big bonus to permitting change because we've already had even a mild experience with it. All right. Permitting change, however, is the single biggest challenge for each and every one of us. And the operative word there is permitting. All right. Most people, before they know this, go back to the negative bias. Here's what's wrong. Here's what's in the way. Here's what I'm feeling that is derailing me, discouraging me. Okay. That's not going to power you. That's not going to give you the capability. It's also true, but you need to shake your head. And at the same time you feel a negative, you make yourself stop and find whatever positive there is, no matter how small. Whether we create clutter or not, now in this reassessment of what worked and what didn't, who or what can be your check-in, can be you, it can be another person, becomes the accountability component, right? Let's now identify what are the remaining areas in need of improvement. A long time ago, we did a podcast on procrastination. You might want to go back and look at that. And along the way, you might find other podcast videos that'll supplement what's in the back of your mind that's bugging you and distracting you or discouraging you and undermining your intent. Okay. You're aware of it. You're aware of those feelings, those messages, that self-talk, but you aren't retrieving in the way of supports and strategies what you need now by going back and revisiting failure, success, and times in your life, projects where it didn't work. If you're retrieving that, it's like you're bringing the garbage back in from outside. The garbage goes one way out, and we learn from it. Okay, if in the garbage is, all of the vegetables that went stale because you didn't eat them, and now they're all like a mush, you're not bringing that back in. And that is exactly what reminding yourself in a negative way of the setbacks, the discouragement, the derailment, the what ifs. You're bringing the garbage back in. Learn from it. I'm not buying a case of tomatoes anymore because I can't handle a case of tomatoes. I'm going to buy 2 tomatoes at a time. I'm going to use them and then I'm going to move forward. These are not like find the solution to world peace thing, right? This is logic and you know it already. So what about what you aren't retrieving in the way of supports and strategies that you need right now for longer term goal setting? All right. Some of those involve seeking support. Now, we've done an extensive series on building a Clutter Buddy system based on those same individual needs, right? We broke you up into whatever it was, extrovert, introvert, blah, 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 time of day. Did you want a big group, a small group? Those are your individual needs. That's exactly the same thing you do when you look at a pile of clutter. All right. That's exactly the same thing. As many as are possible need to be considered. Don't get stuck in the intellectualizing though. All right. There is a limit to even good things, good strategies, and then you got to use them. That one source of support, the weekly podcast, can act if you don't have a Clutter Buddy system. And we're now redeveloping it that way. Act in the role of mentor. I want you to understand something though. When we debrief and we digest and we problem solve, that is not counseling. That is coaching. All right. That is not therapeutic mental health counseling. If you need that, call me on a different need. All right. It's coaching. So the weekly podcast can act in the role of mentor. Is that enough? Do you know in your heart of hearts that you need more than that? If regularly you reflect and adjust accordingly, that's a huge skill to develop. No matter how many times it doesn't happen in time or in quite the way you want and need it to, the more you can do that, reflect and adjust accordingly. Okay. Huge, huge skill to have, and a very valuable strategy to use. So stop what? What do you stop? You stop the negative self-talk. Soon as that starts, get up and leave the committee. All right. As soon as you're aware of it, because that represents something called a fixed mindset. Go back to procrastination, that video. If you've got the book, Procrastination by Jane Burka and Lenora Ewan, it is the Bible on procrastination. Get it, read it, commit it to memory. Because as soon as you're aware of the negative self-talk and undermining yourself, that sets you up for only being able to accept and use a fixed mindset. And a fixed mindset says, what we need, it says, this is the way it's got to be. This is the way it's always going to be. All right. That's what a fixed mindset says. Well, this is the way it's always going to be. I'm limited. I can't do. It's the I can't. What we need is a growth mindset. The opposite, where we acknowledge the truth of what we think and do, and we build on our experiences, and we build the skills, and we acknowledge the skills we've developed, no matter how big or small they are. And we celebrate our resilience. Keep coming back. Keep trying. That we're still trying to improve. Not a small skill. Not a small skill to reflect on our own experiences and celebrate whatever part was good enough. Good enough is good enough. Right? And then give ourselves an attaboy for the resilience to keep coming back and dig deeper, push further toward the goals we want the most. Regroup. You're feeling discouraged, derailed, overwhelmed. Good self-care. Eliminate the negative, catch it right away, the negative self-talk. Don't beat yourself up when you're already down. You wouldn't kick somebody else if they were down, would you? So don't do it to yourself. All right. Regroup. Fine-tune the plan. And work very hard at it. Not punishing the messenger. The messenger, in the case of the negative self-talk and the derailing, defeating, overwhelming part, that messenger is ourself. The voices in the committee, get up and leave the committee meeting. Do anything else. Go into the shower, wash it off, and watch all of that negativity go down the drain. And I don't care if you're taking 6 showers a day to do it. All right, do it. Be responsible. Work toward being responsible and accountable. Just being willing to adjust in whatever small ways are necessary. And keep coming back to yourself. A fixed mindset is, things are this way. They're this way. And it's always going to be this way. And I don't know what to do. So I've decided that it's the best that I can accomplish. This is it. All right. I'm stuck. I'm always going to be this way. I'm a fill in the blank. A growth mindset is while I feel that, that is no truer than that I can do it. All right. That's not the that's where my head is right now. That is not who I am in the entirety. And I want more. I've made some progress. It's small, but I've made it. That indicates that I can do it. I might need to pace myself. Yeah, I've had some setbacks, more than my fair share. And you know what? I will, if I'm still drawing breath, you can give it the test, the mirror. Yeah, no, I'm still alive, which means I'm going to continue at times to have some challenges. But here's what I'm going to do that's different. When they start, I'm going to break them down. I'm going to stop because I know if I'm in a hole, digging it deeper is not going to get me out. If I feel in a hole and I keep digging with the same stuff, all right, it's not going to get me out of it. That's the way to being over your head. All right. I'm going to break it down. I'm going to stop what I'm doing, stop what I'm thinking, give myself permission to step aside. I'm going to start breaking it down by brainstorming. You can brainstorm by journaling. You can brainstorm by, I use a whiteboard quite often. All right. And I just write what I'm thinking. Even more frequently than that, I talk to myself out loud so I can hear it. All right. And then I've got all of my senses engaged. And where my head's not working for me on it at that time, some other part of me will step up for me. It always does, and say, okay, you can do better than that. Come on. Now, is that true? Is that you're telling yourself that? Is that really true? Is that, and is that what we need right now? Try it. Okay. Break them down. Break it down. And one step at a time, even when I don't really know what the right answer is or what will work, I'm going to try one new thing at a time until I get a plan that works better. Even a little better is better than where I am. And I will continue to take good enough care of myself that I have the mental, physical, emotional energy to keep working on making progress. And I won't criticize the person, myself in this case, the messenger. I'll critique the plan. I won't turn on the person. I'll turn on the plan. And I'll critique it in very different ways. Critiquing is very different from criticizing. You have a very different mindset, a very different message to yourself. Criticizing is getting beaten up. Critiquing is being given a plan for the way out and following the floor plan. Critique means I will acknowledge the reality of what exists. I won't sugarcoat it or explain it away by hauling out my limitations. I can't do it for this reason. I never was good at that. And whatever it is you say to yourself, pack that up and put it aside. Don't even listen to that. Stop it right away. Hum to yourself. Na, 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 na. I don't care what you do. Whatever you do, make it work. All right? As soon as that negative stuff starts, hauling out your limitations based on true experience must be true. In fact, it must be so true that it explains the whole entirety of you. No. And all the reasons why. All right? I will look at what parts aren't working and I will figure out what might work given what I have to offer today. Energy, focus, ideas, whatever it is. I will look at what parts work well enough, maybe not perfectly, but well enough, and I'll identify the parts of what worked well enough that I have mastery over in particular. When I'm choosing which ones I'm going to try first and put my effort, my limited focus, my limited energy at first, I'm going to look at the things that I have some mastery over. And even in a defeating situation, you have skills that you know you have. All right. Perseverance is one of mine. Okay. You don't have to be the smartest person. You don't have to be the most capable person. You don't even have to be the most informed person. You should see me with a computer system. Holy macaroni. All right. Ah, you want to see panic when something goes wrong? It's like, oh no. Okay. However, I know that this is a joke I tell myself. You have a master's degree, so you know at least you're trainable. Okay, like you know you're trainable. Never mind the panic. Okay. What? So you know that you don't know the answer at all. In fact, you have no idea what the answer is. However, how can we find it? From people who know more. So I might go to YouTube. I might in desperation call HAFSA. All right. If I'm really, I might do a lot of stuff. I might play with it and trip over the answer because I know that while this is not my strong suit, I know that I can chip away at it and find an answer. And if all else fails, I ask for the help from somebody I know who knows what they're talking about. All right. I don't lean on them because part of the problem is my panic when something doesn't work electronically. And you should see the conversations I have with my printer. I swear. I'm surprised it still agrees to be in the same room with me. All right. Like, no, I'm not making a joke. This is true. I'm putting a kind of a funny shine on it. It's not pretty when it happens. All right. We all have limitations. We all have them. All right. So pick the skill you know you have. My skill is I know I'm trainable. Okay. I know I can do it with the right planning and enough self-care. If I beat myself up, all right, that printer might end up out in the backyard. All right. Yeah. So, and that's really going to help me, right? Like that's clear. In the moment, that feels like a really good choice. But you know what? That's not what we need here. And I know it. So good self-care is, okay, calm down, breathe. All right. Now, what's the first step? Based on the energy I have and the focus I have, I go back to hauling up the energy, whatever energy I have. That depends on what day it is. That depends on what other things are happening. All right, that siphon off your energy. You're not alone in that. And if I can only focus because it's not the best day of the week, all right, if I can only focus this much, I focus that much. And then I go and I do something that that builds me, that gives me more energy, that gives me more self-talk, good self-talk, energizing, distraction. I come back to it. I do it little chunks at a time. And I will identify the part that frankly ran amok. All right. What is the problem? I'm not going to react to the experience. There's no point. That doesn't tell me enough. I need to know pretty exactly what ran amok. What is the problem that the printer's having? You know what? I may not understand what the printer tells me. but I have a computer and I can go to Google, what is this? And is this, what are the steps to fix this? Is this fixable by me? I'm not spending a day trying to do something that is not something that can be done. It's not a one-person job. All right. Now, I check my facts before I decide it's not a one-person job. Otherwise, I'd be calling people all the time. And what would that give me? If I outsource it all the time, then all I have is the panic I feel. Rather than build, and I'm talking panic, rather than the gradual little tiny increments of, okay, look, this is not the first time this has happened. What's our first step? All right, what's our first step? How did the thing run amok? What is the problem according to the best information that I have? And then I ask myself 3 questions. Right now, in this moment, what do I need that is different from what I did? I panicked. All right. What do I need? I need not to panic. What do I need to do to get rid of that hormonal soup that's now flowing through me? Because panic is a hormonal bath. You know that flush you get? That's hormones, people. All right. And it's not the hormones you need. So I might go out and cuddle my dogs. I might go out and open the front door and let the cold air do whatever. I might do any one of a number of things for a short period of time, but then I've got to come back and I've got to handle the enemy. I don't give up, walk away from it defeated, like the printer won. No, the printer isn't going to win. No, I come back to it. And if I have another negative experience with the printer, we're not getting along that day, then I go out self-care, I get information, I ask help from someone, or the geeks are wonderful. I have a membership with them, but I don't call them all the time because you know what? Do I want to spend my life on hold? I've got a printer because I need the darn printer to work. And you know what? Quite often it's not the printer's fault. That's what I've learned. Quite often it's the way I'm trying to access it with my inexperience. All right. And when that's true, I own it. Now, I may never be a printer expert, but when I get that panic, I know, okay, that's not going to help. That is not going to help. All right. So, what do I need that is different from what I did? Where is it? Where is that information, help, support? Where is it? And how do I get or manufacture enough of it to learn enough to make enough of a difference? And that will be my mantra, okay? Not the negative self-talk. The negative self-talk will still start. I turn the volume off right away. There's no point. We're not going down that path. All right. And the negative self-talk is blame. It's also justification. Here are the reasons why, and I'm not feeling good today. I suddenly discovered I'm not feeling good today. All right, whatever it is, rationalization. Yes, I know, but, and here are the reasons why. You know when you're rationalizing, right? You know, it feels differently, right? Yeah. Okay, from, you know what, I've got COVID and I really should be in bed. This is the wrong day to take on the printer. All right. Yeah. Or overthinking. Just overthinking. No, the truth is really very simple. And you know you're overthinking when it takes you a long time to describe it to yourself. The truth is really very simple. You might in the past have filled in the blank from about where you go and what you do when things become sufficiently challenging that you're discouraged, that you feel overwhelmed and incapable. Put your hand up, Elaine. Instead, all right, we're going to create a sense of mental and emotional security, assuredness, confidence. And that doesn't mean you're going to have the answers. That just means you're going to accept that you're fallible and imperfect, all right, just the way you were meant to be. And some of your failings and your imperfections may be things that people like and love you the most for. They're not going anywhere, all right? They don't have to go anywhere. But we're going to get to a point where you're not beating yourself up, all right? And the confidence you have is that you are worth more than you feel right now. And that if you're still standing, you must be doing something right. It might not have a lot to do with what you're looking at right now, but that in itself means you're capable. And you're going to tell yourself enough times, because I'm a therapist, I have told myself this many, 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 many times, that now when I say it, I actually allow myself truthfully to believe it. And when I want to have a negative response to something, I also say to myself, if it would feel really good to have that negative response, it would be just be like, wow, that would be great. Except that's not who I am. And that isn't who I want to become. So if I wouldn't do it to somebody else, I'm not going to do it to myself either. And we all have emotional dysregulation. We all have emotional experiences. It's important to know what they are, but they're not fact necessarily. All right, they're not fact. All right, the last time something happened, and that something delayed or derailed you, time over time, that can be overwhelming. But this time we need to work together for you to set a healthier and me to set a healthier relationship with ourselves. Instead of focusing on what went wrong, instead, accept that you do have another choice. And that other choice is to remember the times when things went well. You are also that person. Doesn't feel that way in this moment, but you are. And to take some affirmation and credit for the fact that you were part of making them go well. You don't have to have been in charge of the whole thing. You were part of making them go well. And accept that clearly you are capable of making things go well. You are. It's not a mystery and it's not magic. It's because you had a plan that even if you didn't realize it at the time, worked well enough. It doesn't have to be the perfect plan. You don't have to have had an inspiration where you could see every single step that made that thing go better. Except if it did go better and you were part of making it go better, even a small part, you're capable of that again with better information, maybe. Maybe a little help to undo the strings that pull you back to the negative self-talk. That part of the problem got resolved. Repeat, 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 repeat. Okay. Why, when you're attempting something, would you defeat yourself? Ask yourself that. When those negative thoughts come, when that bath of panic comes, all right? Why defeat yourself? Why buy on that that's the truth? It's a hormonal response. And throw away the power that you do have. You do that through negative self-talk. Through only accessing all the ways things can and have gone wrong before, even before you start. If you're here today and still standing, something had to have gone well. Take the credit. You don't have, nobody in their right mind goes to the bank, makes a withdrawal to access something, and then takes the money and lights a match to it. Would you do that? Why would you do that with yourself virtually? That's what you're doing. When it comes to making a plan and a step-by-step working that plan and readjusting as necessary, context is everything. You are not the same every single day with the same insight, with the same energy, with the same whatever. You're not. You need to plumb your, I call it plumbing your depths. When you're taking on a challenge, you need to plumb your depths. You need to understand who you are that day, what you have working for you, what you have working against you, and make a plan accordingly with no excuses. It depends on the context we're in, how we show up. There's nothing wrong with you. Now, if you're living with rampant depression or anxiety, then you need help with that. All right? You need help with that. Get the help. Get the help. If you had a broken leg, would you be walking around without a cast? Would you? It's that simple. Don't beat yourself up for the broken leg. I'm sure you didn't plan it. I'm sure you didn't wake up one day and say, gee, I can hardly wait to step off that thing and break my leg. That's part of the plan today. Things happen. And bad things happen when we don't have the energy to deal with them, when we don't have the understanding, when we don't have the experience, when we're dragging along a lot of nonsense and a lot of stuff that weighs us down. There would be more bad days than good days. Take the boulders out of your backpack. Who do you need? What do you need in order to do that? It depends on the context we're in, how we show up. We have many different versions of ourselves. You don't have multiple personality disorder or anything. That's just true. All right. Which version do you need to be today? I had a struggle yesterday, and I could really have aced it in a very negative way. I mean, I would have aced it and felt good. And then I thought to myself, that is not the version of myself that I'm going to use today. No, I am worth more than that. Okay. And it depends on the goal you're focusing on. That's right in front of you. Even if it's not right in front of you, if it is a priority and it's bugging you, it is right in front of you. Which of all the parts of yourself, your skills, your strategies that have got you this far, the knowledge and the experience, are you going to choose from? And if you don't know, close your eyes and retrieve the memory of who and what you were and how you felt and how you thought in that last experience you had with even minor success. And then make that part of yourself the boss. And every time the naysayers come, every time the insecure part of you, the sign up for guilt and destruction, all right, sign up for taking a beating from others, literally, I hope, the boss shows up and says, okay, stop the nonsense. That is no more true than anything else. This is who you are. And some days you do better at it than other days. Okay. And in that mindset, look around and see if you can identify any of the naysayers in your head. You know, those committee members in your head, that tape with the voices on it. See if you can identify any of the naysayers. because they disrupt the boss from helping you and completing whatever the job, the goal is. Above all else, keep your eye on the ball. What is the most important purpose for the task in front of you? What is the purpose? No one in their right mind wakes up, steps out of bed, puts their feet over the side of the bed and says, gee, I can hardly wait to do that thing I really don't want to do. I can just hardly wait to do it. Nobody does that. All right, those people really need help. So what is the most important purpose? We all search for purpose and meaning. If you look at your goals, the most important ones you have, almost for sure, there is an important you value element to the purpose in it. It represents a value, a belief you have. All right. And keep that purpose clear. Repeat, 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 repeat to yourself as you start to wind down and get distracted and whatever else happens. And keep it vivid in your mind, which is why it's best to work in small chunks. Because when you're doing a job you really don't want to do, all right, that you really have no enthusiasm for, but you have a big obligation and need for, you're not going to be terribly well energized. That's not the way that hormonal balance inside of you is going to produce energy. Okay? That's not the way it works. Work in smaller chunks. And even if those chunks have to be 15 minutes a day, make it 15 minutes a day. And when you're getting started, because you will get there with 15 minutes a day, it'll take you longer. And if you're just getting started, only allow yourself one more 15 minutes, because you will not come back to something. You will not habituate something that you ended on a negative. And it's what you habituate that will help you get over all of the reasons that you're not getting there now. If you have any challenges maintaining focus, that vision in small chunks has a bigger chance of remaining clear. And that vision will be a huge motivator and energy provider. The purpose and the vision, right? Even if your energy comes from sheer perseverance. I say to myself, and I'm not exaggerating, 25, 50 times on a bad day, just do it now, Elaine, and it never gets easier. If you don't do it now, you are accepting, instead of having one job, finish it. All right, you have 5 jobs. You have to see it. You have to realize, what in heaven's name is that doing there? You have to figure out, okay, what is it? Where does it go? You have to pick it up and walk to where it should go. You have to put it away anyway. Every time, 5 times more the work. Okay. Is it a surprise if you're just starting that, or you're starting again, that you walk by it? Because you know that at a sensory level, you know that. Just do it now. It never gets easier. Don't put it down, put it away. And keep your eye out for the interrupters, especially the most common ones for yourself. And make a plan before you start about how to fill the needs those interrupters are presenting. So when that printer decides today's Elaine's fun day, I know in advance, if it doesn't work, I'm going to have that flush. I have to catch it soon. I have to go straight to, okay, what are the options? I have to miss or reduce that stage. All right. It's an interrupter and it's presenting itself. What are your needs? My needs are more information. by putting whatever it has been before in your way this time. All right? A problem prevented is better than a problem solved. Old problems need to be allowed to age out. Let them age out, old problems. And if part of those problems are things that remain with you, depression, anxiety, ADD, ADHD, factor that in. That is something to be managed. That is not something to allow to derail you. Okay. And I tell myself I went into social work for a reason. Okay. Because I either choose not to be technical or that's just not the way my brain works. All right. For me, I learned a long time ago, I need to understand the logic behind something before I can remember it or I can do it with any kind of ease. The logic is not always available. Hence, days can be imperfect. All right. And then I improvise. But first I have to fight that, that thing that takes over. Just for a minute. We're not going there. That's what I say to myself. As soon as I start to feel it rise, and I encourage you to do that, we're not going there. This is hard enough. We're not going there. What do we need? What do we need to do? And what do I need to be able to do a good enough job of that? To meet whatever the need and the purpose is today. Good? All right. I will see you next week. And for those people who joined later, we're going to switch to a slightly different process. And that process is going to look like this. Every second week, I'm going to present new information. And on the off week, Wednesdays, 11 till noon, we're not going to record. We're going to digest and deconstruct and problem solve and share how you applied last week's information. So take notes, because this is not just a memory listen to offering. And I'm doing that for my reasons, but I'm doing it because when I committed to doing this very shortly after, one of my concerns was, will this work just be about listening, but never actually incorporating? That's not why I do it. I could take my dogs for a walk instead. Instead, I pay a dog walker. And so, well, you know what? You got to make compromises, right? You can't be in two places at the same time. And they love him. They love Scotty. So next week will be digest this. And I will also speak to Braden and see if there's any way we can fast track the weeks that are record weeks. Okay? Can't promise that because he has his own business and I'm probably not his biggest client. Anyway, you take care and I will see you next week for digestion and implementation. Bye, everybody.
Can you do it? Yes, you can. Yes, you can.